Hello, welcome back to the Virtual Ninja Show. It's season number 5. And we are starting with an exciting topic. We are starting with endpoint management settings in the Microsoft 365 Defender portal. This will be a 2-part episode. And why am I so excited? Because all of you are so excited. If you look at that LinkedIn post that I made with the announcement, I never had so many views, impressions, likes, and reshares. So thank you for your interest. And I have Dan with me, who is the feature PM. Dan, how do you feel about all that excitement around, your feature?
I can tell you it's been complicated to hold on, to our excitement as well. We've been working on this for over a year now, and we're really, really thrilled to announce everything that we have to announce now. And honestly, I was also surprised by the amount of love and enthusiasm that we got from the audience. So I'm really looking forward to this show and being able to go into both the high level and also details of what we're going to be releasing in the upcoming months, and what already our preview customers already see in their portals, basically. So really excited. Thanks for having me on the show, Heike.
Thank you so much for joining. And I actually didn't ask you to introduce yourself, but of course, Dan Levy, and he is the feature PM, not just for the endpoint settings, but he's part of the Microsoft 365 or Defender for Endpoint product group. Explain in a nutshell for those that might have not read your blog post. What is it in a nutshell that we are going to talk about?
There's actually 2 things that we announced in the recent blog post. And one of them is, first of all, an update to something that already exists. We're calling it vNext, or like the next management channel. But basically, what we're doing, first of all, is we're taking what we released in May 2022, which is known as MDE Settings Management. And we're improving the feature by making it even easier for customers to manage their devices. What we mean by that is that basically MDE as a management channel, the endpoint security agent being able to receive security policies on the device, is being enhanced. Several aspects. First of all, it's supporting more platforms. Secondly, it's supporting more security policies. And thirdly, the enrollment process itself is becoming easier. There's less requirements on the identity plane, and it's basically going to help security operations and security folks get those devices managed. So as long as you have MDE on a device, you can manage your security settings on the device across OS platforms and versions. So that's the first part of what we're going to announce. And then the second part is our integrated settings management. Basically, an awesome effort here as well from the teams, both on the MDE side and with our partner team Intune, where basically we're making it possible for security admins to create, edit, manage their security policies as if they were in the Intune portal, but they can do everything inside the MDE portal. And so it's giving them this single portal experience where everything that they can do here.
Yeah, and I think the very important word here is integration. It's not yet another place where you can actually configure settings. It is really a bidirectional synchronization, or whatever we call it. What you see in Intune, you see in the portal, vice versa. So, and important, this is now in public preview since July. So everything that you are seeing here in the demo is in public preview. So you have to turn on that toggle to actually also leverage public preview features. And we are also going to share a little bit of things that are a little on our roadmap. So yes.
Yeah. So everything you're going to see now is currently available for any customer that's enabled preview features in their portal. But very soon, this will be the norm. Like, everybody is going to see it this way, and you won't need to turn on a toggle for this. It's going to be by default. This is going to be your experience. And so the first thing I want to mention is basically, how do we turn on this MDE as a management channel? And here, basically, there's not much that's changed since May of last year. Basically, inside the Defender portal, a security admin can go to the configuration management pane under settings, and there's an area called enforcement scope. And the first main toggle just says, yes or no, do you want MDE to be able to manage the security settings on your devices? And if the answer is no, because you have already Intune or another management channel, and you're happy with your management channel, then that's fine. And you just don't do anything. However, if you do intend for MDE to be able to receive security policies on your devices and manage these devices, then you turn the toggle on, and what you'll get is this list per OS platform of which OS platforms do you want to manage and how do you want to decide which devices get managed. So this is basically a screenshot from the portal. And what's basically new from last year is that, as you can see here at the bottom of the screen, we're currently enabling the management of Linux devices or macOS devices, which is new. It wasn't available until now, and it's one of the big requests we received from customers. But basically, as of today, any device that can be onboarded to MDE, that MDE as an EDR can protect, well, MDE as a management channel can also protect. We can also receive security policies on those devices as long as the device is MDE onboarded. And we're aware that not all admins will want to manage all of their devices at once using MDE. So for that use case, there's basically the radio button that you see below the checkbox. And for each OS platform, you can choose either to manage all devices or only the devices that you specifically tag with the MDE management tag, which you can see here in the description field. And basically this gives the granularity to admins to decide on which specific devices do I want MDE to step in and act as a management channel. And once that is in, your device will be able to be managed by MDE.
Perfect. So how do you tag the devices? Do you need to use, Intune group policies? Can do this in the portal? How do you tag them?
The great news is that basically we're referring here only to MDE tags. So security admins, basically one of the pain points that we're solving for our customers is we're understanding that IT admins don't want to hop across portals all the time. And we're understanding that sometimes in order to reduce the friction between other teams, like IT teams, identity teams, network teams, sometimes there are these requirements. We're really on a roadmap to reduce this occurrence. And so what we're doing here, for example, is if you want to manage a device, you don't need to go to another portal. You're inside the MDE portal. You just put this tag using the MDE tagging mechanism inside the portal. Dynamic tagging is going to be something that's available as well. So basically for the moment, you can do the tagging manually, but you can also very soon you'll be able to say, for example, all devices that start with the letters VIP, add them this tag. And this will make the tagging automatic and basically the enrollment automatic for all your VIP devices by naming convention, for example.
Thank you for explaining. Okay, so now this is new for Linux and Mac, and we had it before for Windows clients and Windows servers. That's correct?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Okay, good. Anything else that you would like to cover about these news?
Yeah, I just wanted to give like a little sneak peek into what's happening behind the scenes. Because, I just mentioned right now, like, okay, it's new. We have new OS platforms that we support, cross-plat. But there's also a big change that's taking place on the Windows side, but it's happening under the hood. End customers, security admins won't necessarily notice it, but it has significant impact on the way devices are managed. Basically, until today, for a device to be managed by MDE, MDE would attempt to create a trust between the device and the organization's Azure AD. And so the device needed to have multiple prerequisites in order to be able to register to Azure AD. And very often we had customers that recognized this as a pain point for them, for which it was difficult for them. Sometimes the device didn't have line of sight, or some of the prerequisites were hard to meet. But basically, the new thing that we're bringing here is that from now on, the devices don't need to be fully registered to Azure AD. Basically, we understood that security admins wants to be able to manage their devices irrespective of what's going on the identity plane. And all they need from a technical basis is they just need the device to appear in their Active Directory as an object. They don't necessarily need to be fully enrolled or fully registered. And so what's happening now with the release that we're bringing out now? So again, it's from the moment you have the public previews of it available in your tenant. Basically, what's happening is all the devices that are in scope for being managed by MDE, they won't attempt to create a full identity in AD anymore. They will actually just create a placeholder identity so that they can still be grouped there, so that they can be targeted with policies from Intune. But basically, there's no more hard prerequisite on the identity environment. Basically, from the moment you turn this feature on, we'll create a placeholder identity and the device will appear in the device list in the Active Directory, but it won't be a fully joined identity. So that was the second thing I wanted to mention about like the removing the prerequisites on the identity plane to make this end-to-end enrollment and management easier for security admins and easier for machines to meet the prerequisites.
Okay, so this is exciting. Thanks for explaining the architecture, Dan. So that also means that they don't have to be registered in Azure AD or Entra ID, but do they have to be onboarded now to Intune still, or how is that connected?
Yeah, great points. The awesome part here is that we've been partnering with the Intune team to make it so that MDE customers, if they are not already Intune customers and if their devices are not already using Intune as a management channel, well, basically we're going to help them on this journey. And MDE, as an agent already on the device, is going to act as a management channel. So the device or the admins just do not need to onboard their devices with a new additional agent for the device to be managed. MDE is basically becoming a new channel for devices to receive policies that have been created in Intune or through Intune. Basically, Intune remains as the backend, but not as the front end, and definitely not as the management channel. Basically, MDE is going to be the one talking with the Intune service, so that now the MDE agent is able to receive these policies from Intune and apply them on the devices.
Okay, but I do need Intune.
So first of all, you need Intune, yes, but any MDE customer actually has an implicit Intune availability or tenant in the backend. As a security admin, you just don't need to go there. If you don't intend to use Intune, and if you don't already use Intune in your environment, you don't need to go to Intune to manage security policies. You'll be able to do everything inside the MDE portal. And the fact that Intune is in the background doing stuff is kind of transparent for you.
Okay. So, and this is the same for Windows, Mac, and Linux?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So any device that is supported by MDE can be managed. Even if it's a Linux server that isn't supported by Intune, for example, you'll be able to create a Linux AV policy and target it to your Linux device as long as the device is itself managed by MDE.
Okay, and then are there any devices that can't be managed by MDE?
Yes, so unfortunately, I want to say there's still 3 or 4 category of devices that are still on our roadmap to solve. The first one is server core. So by nature, server core is a trimmed down version of the server OS. And out of the box, it comes without specific programs and libraries that MDE as a management channel requires in order to run. So server core isn't supported because it's a trimmed down OS, and by definition, it's limited. The second use case that isn't supported are domain controllers. The reason for domain controllers is multiple, but the bottom line is that we've been hearing from a lot of customers that the risk of misconfigurations is so high, and the impact that this could have on an organization if a domain controller were somehow to be involuntarily or basically misconfigured entirely like human error or by mistake would be so broad that we basically want to refrain from managing domain controllers using the general capabilities that we're presenting here. So we're still looking into ways that we can support domain controllers. But right now, what I'm going to share with you like in a second, this won't work on domain controllers. And the way that we detect, by the way, for if some technical people here on the call want to know, like the way that we detect is basically based on the OS. So as long as your device or your server is recognized as having the identity of being a domain controller, then MDE will just detect that and say, okay, I'm backing off here because this is a domain controller. So we're doing all these kind of checks, and we're also improving the checks that we're doing now because we understand how important this is. But we're looking to support that in different scenario. For the moment, we don't have more information to share there.
Okay, but it was also more like a request from customers, right? Saying like, "Hey, please don't touch my domain controller."
It was both. It was both. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was.
Okay.
It was an understanding. Like we really weighed the pros and cons, and we understand that like if we want to manage domain controllers, it's going to need to be through a different flow and a more air-gapped flow. I want to call it, but more like a more secure flow, basically.
Okay. Okay. So this was two. You mentioned, I think, three or four.
Exactly. There are
So what
four.
are the others?
So the third one are VDIs or non-persistent machines. The reason for non-persistent machines is more from a maintenance perspective. Basically, end of day, all of these devices are off-boarded and then they're re-onboarded at the beginning of the day. It takes up to 90 minutes for these policies to reach devices. The cleanup process, the maintenance in your directory to like make sure that these devices or these endpoints are always registered, removed, or joined, unjoined, or that they receive policies, basically means that for non-persistent machines, GPO remains the preferred and easiest way to manage settings on those devices. And the last category, but honestly, I think that you would expect this, are legacy operating systems. So we're talking about Windows 2008. And prior to that, unfortunately, we're not going to be supporting them. And also, as you can imagine, 2012 R2 slowly are becoming being removed from our updatability. But for the moment, they still 2012 R2 and up are still servers that we support for the moment.
Okay. You just mentioned something about 90 minutes. Can you enforce this or like make this sync a little quicker?
Thanks for mentioning that. So yeah, we're aware, like all our customers, that the MDM channel in general takes approximately like up to 90 minutes for a newly created policy to reach a device, as long as the device is online. And some customers have asked for us to make that faster. So there are multiple efforts that are currently being carried out to try to improve that. The team is working on that. But in the meantime, as a preliminary situation, something that we're doing now is we're already making a policy sync button available in the MDE portal. And so the device just needs to be online, and the security admin can go to the device page, and in like the immediate actions on the device page, you can click there, click policy sync, and within 10 minutes, if there's been something that has changed on the policies that you created or that you targeted, the device will just check in and receive its new policies or its updated policies, and that's as fast as it will go. And this is supported for all MDE managed devices.
But this is now per device, or can I also mark a couple of devices and say bulk update?
Yeah, that's a good point. We're also, immediately it's not already available, but in the future we are working on this button to be available in the bulk capability. And as you can imagine, one of the key capabilities that we want to unblock there is being able to edit a policy and immediately order a policy sync, for example, to make it faster, just to give you an example.
Thank you. I am putting back my glasses on because I want to see the demo that you prepared for us. Please show us.
So Heike, what you can see here is that basically I'm going in the MDE portal in the Endpoint Security Policies tab in the navbar. And here I can see all my policies and I can filter by the security policy type. You have the policy types, you have the subtypes, and basically everything that you see here, the list of all my policies, for example, is basically being imported via an API call from Intune. So basically all that you can see here is the exact same data that the same user would be able to view if they had opened the Intune portal instead of doing this inside the MDE portal.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot of chaos there. Like a lot of tests have been done in this tenant, I see.
Absolutely. This is like the favorite tenant from our dev team. So they're doing a lot of tests, and they're also doing a lot of tests with this capability, which is basically being able to create a policy.
This is awesome.
Yeah, so as you can see, this is the UX that I pre-recorded like a few weeks back. We're still working on the UX, but as you can see, the core capabilities are here. You can create a policy, select your settings. You can decide to target it to all your devices or to just to certain groups of devices. And once you create save, the policy is created. It's created here inside the MDE portal. But if you go to
Yeah.
Intune, the same policy will also have a policy page in Intune with the same settings, targeting the same devices. And it's basically an end-to-end integration where you can create policies in MDE, they'll appear in Intune. And if you create a policy in Intune, it will appear in MDE as well.
So how long does it take now for the Intune, for that policy to show up in Intune?
Oh,
What do you feel?
it's immediate. It's an API call, so like everything you're seeing here looks like it's happening in MDE, but as I mentioned before, the backend is actually Intune. So it's actually already created in Intune, and the time that it takes to appear in MDE is the time that it takes to appear in Intune, basically.
Okay. What are the settings that you can configure via the MDE portal? What security settings are available?
Sure. So actually, this
There's a
is
lot, right? So there's firewall, there's antivirus, there's attack surface reduction rules, there's probably network protection. I don't know. There's like lots of stuff.
So this is an awesome subject because currently, or at least when we announced public preview in July, we supported only AV policies, and this is across all platforms. So the traditional AV policy that you can create in Intune for Windows, let's say, you can also create it for Mac OS devices and for Linux devices. And as we're speaking, customers can already, in their public preview, they can already manage the policies for AV exclusions. But within a few weeks' time, the goal is really to support every single Defender policy that can be created in Intune directly from the MDE portal. So in other words, if you're a security admin and you have the permissions to manage the security settings in your environment, the core capabilities are all available inside the MDE portal.
Wow. Okay. To summarize, with the public preview, as of now, there is AV settings for all the supported devices. And then going forwards, with the next update, the next release, or whatever we call it, they will be able to manage all of those settings that are endpoint security specific.
That's correct. There's two more things I wanted to show you. The first one really pertains to a security admin who's created already a policy in the MDE portal. And once they've created their policy, they can go to the policy page and they can list the devices that are receiving this policy.
Nice.
So this is an awesome view, but also what they can do is they can like double click on a device and you see this new tab that we created inside the device page. You can see all the endpoint security policies that a specific device is already receiving. And if you click on the policy, you can see what settings that policy includes, what's the status of that setting. And this is really, really awesome to see. Basically, you won't need to pivot to a different portal every time you want to know, is tamper protection enabled on this device? Is this device receiving a minimum level of protection or policies that we've created for it? Or are there gaps in protection?
Okay, this is awesome. So basically, you see immediately, like, okay, you don't just see the policy in your endpoint management tab, but you also see on the device page, or if you go to the devices, what policies have been set.
Exactly.
Like, this is awesome.
I can also show you like in the policy page itself. Here I'm just starting, from the list of all the security policies in the tenant. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select like one policy. And so, of course, we have all the capabilities that you can imagine for any list in MDE, right? You can customize the columns, you can search. I always like to you do it by search. But if I open the policy page, there are multiple tabs. And I can see like for every device, like how many devices are effectively receiving every setting. Are there devices that are failing to receive this policy? This is going to appear in the check-in status. For example, this is a policy that 3 devices are receiving and all the settings are being enforced on those devices. And you can also see the groups. And so all these tabs here at the top are basically like the key capabilities that security admins will want to be able to see. What are the devices receiving this policy? What are the policy settings? So you get a status of devices that have successfully received every single setting, the values of the setting, if you want to know how it's configured. So this is where you'll have more details. Like imagine a firewall rule and you're going to have all the details of the firewall rule.
So even if we can't natively, as of now, create a firewall policy, you already see at least all the values coming that have been set in Intune.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything that's already applied on the device, basically, every policy that the device is receiving, even if it's not a policy that you can already create or edit in the MDE portal, you can already see it. And so from a security admin perspective, it's already giving you like the breadth of visibility, comprehensive visibility from the policy's perspective, like what's happening on this device.
Okay, so I probably see a lot of IT admins now. Oh my goodness, no, because I'm the master, and how can I keep track of what has been set? What are the security admins doing in the portal? So how is this? Where do they see the logging of what has been set?
Okay, so this is a great point. Like it touches upon like very broadly how do IT and security teams work together when sometimes there's an overlap of responsibilities or a gray zone wherein sometimes IT admins do manage security settings. Two things to mention here. First of all, if a security admin has permissions in the Microsoft suite of products to manage security settings on a device, that permission is granted basically in Intune. So IT admins if the security admins already have these permissions, the situation is already the case now. A security admin can go to Intune and already edit a security policy. So we're not bringing any change in roles and responsibilities or in, where is the red line between security admins and IT admins. We're respecting whatever organizations have already in place, and we're making it available from the MDE portal. Now, from a logging perspective, everything that's available is in Intune is going to be available here as well. So in Intune, where you can see all the logging capabilities, every time you create a policy in the MDE portal, they'll be created basically also with your Intune permissions. And so all the auditing permissions in Intune will also apply to a security admin that is editing a policy from the MDE portal, for example.
Thank you so much, Dan, for explaining. So I know we have a lot more to cover, but this is going to be in part number 2. And we are going to talk about, in more details about the roles and permissions that we just touched on, grouping, targeting. Also, I guess many people ask, okay, what if I configure something here and something here? Like what's actually coming to my endpoint from a settings perspective? Thank you, Dan, for being my expert on this episode. And everyone, I hope you tune in. You don't want to miss the second part of this episode. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.